Welcome to another great edition of Mississippi Stories. I'm your host, Marshall Ramsey. I'm editor-at-large and editorial cartoonist for Mississippi Today. Our guest today is somebody I've been following for a long time. Since one day I rented this movie called Undefeated. It's a fantastic, awesome, Academy Award-winning movie, and he was the coach in it, believe it or not. I know it might shock you. He'll definitely, if you've seen the movie, you know exactly who this is. But he's now gone on to start an incredible podcast, actually starting a movement. And it's called the Army of Normal Folks.
Army of Normal Folks.
Normal Folks. And Bill Courtney is here with us today. Bill, thank you. I'm a huge fan. I loved your book as well. You've had a great career since that moment when you literally let three guys come in and film 550 hours of footage of you trying to coach an inner city football team that turned out to be literally you walking down the red carpet with P. Diddy and George Clooney, and that was surreal.
Very surreal,
yeah.
very unlooked for, very unanticipated, very unexpected, but oddly, that 10 minutes of fame has continued to go on, and speeches, books, more speeches, and now this podcast. It's given the blessing of it is it's given me a platform to talk about things that I think matter.
Yeah, definitely. You've done that really well. Against the Grain was your book. It's fantastic. I do recommend folks go check that one out as well. A lot of good wisdom in there. There was one part in there where you're talking about legacy, and your legacy is not what goes for pennies on the dollar at the garage sale at the estate sale after you pass out. And I think about your life, and we're not going to deep dive necessarily into your life, but it's, your dad left when you were 4. Your mom had a series of husbands along the way. But you were very blessed, that you found sports. I mean, you would try any sport that came across your path.
It's true.
And you were good at it. You were good at all those.
Some of them.
Yeah, but you were good academically as well. But you had great mentors along the way. And, when you know that, and then you watch, the movie and you see what you're doing now, you understand why mentoring is so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, Dad left home when I was 4. Mom was married, divorced 5 times. 4th daddy shot at me one night.
Yeah, that story still blows my mind.
Well, I had to dive
out. Yours too.
Yeah, I had to dive out a window to survive the evening, and so that's kind of how I came up. And through all that dysfunction and trauma, candidly, there were people that entered my life that had they not entered my life, I don't know where I'd be. And most of them were coaches and teachers. And so when I graduated college, regardless of what I was going to do in my professional life, I just have always believed in the need for servant leadership and mentoring, because I know what it's meant for me in my life, which is why I coached and which is why I'm now doing this podcast.
Yeah. Now, you talk about, coaching, and that was literally a side gig of a side gig that you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, I started a business.
Yeah. And 2001, a few days before 9/11.
A few days before 9/11.
Good timing, Bill.
Yeah, a few days before 9/11, which made it tenuous. And of course, I don't want to equate starting a business with the horror that many people in our country dealt with. But yeah, it made the business tough, and was starting my family at the same time. Lisa and I had 4 kids in 4 years.
I'm about to say, and I can't wait to meet her because I want to shake her hand.
Oh, well, we got on city water and it cleared up. We moved in from the county, but we just kept having kids. Still don't really know how that happened. But so started my family, started my business, started coaching pretty much all at the same time. And the same fundamentals that guided what I think has been a successful family, a successful business, and a successful venture into coaching. All those fundamentals and tenets are universal.
Yeah.
And so that's what's guided me, and those tenets and fundamentals are what I learned from my mentors.
I think I interviewed you, it's probably been a decade ago. I can't really remember when it was. And we kind of kept up back and forth. We text, we do whatever. And, and I think you and I kind of see the world kind of at the same prism a little bit. And it started, I could sense some frustration on your part on what we were hearing from, say, Washington, or what we were seeing on the media and so forth. That's why I love what you're doing with the podcast, because I think the podcast reminds us that what we're seeing necessarily on television every night, or what we're seeing on the internet, isn't exactly real life. That there are real life people out there that are attacking problems. They're doing it for all the right reasons, and they're doing it and getting results.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. The one word answer.
Yeah. Well,
No, I'm just
first, I believe fundamentally that there's an enormous amount of wealth and power in DC, and there's an enormous amount of wealth and power in our national media. And the people that are gaining that wealth and have that power will hold on to it at all cost. And the cost today are the narratives that they craft that continue to divide us.
Yeah.
And I believe they retain that power and they grow their wealth by continuing to divide us, scare us, frighten us, try to highlight our differences and make those differences scare us about one another, and then they bring us into their little camps and can consistently feed us. And like sheep or cows with hooks in our nose, we are blindly following those narratives without opening our minds to a greater societal reality, which is humanity still exists.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that the government or the pundits on our national news stations are ever going to fix anything. I don't think they're incented to, and I really don't think they want to. Rather, I think what is really going to fix what ails us in society is guys like you, guys like me, an army of normal folks dismissing that noise and saying, I have a passion, I have discipline. I don't mean discipline like showing up to work on time. I mean tools. I have gifts. I have a passion, I have discipline. And when I see an area of need in my society, I'm going to employ that passion and discipline and fill a hole, fill a gap. And there are people all over our country doing it. We don't hear about them because it doesn't serve that national media well to tell those stories very well. And so we've sought out to tell those stories, celebrate those stories, and in doing so, build a movement, a literal army of normal folks joining the community that says, I don't care how you vote, I don't care what you look like, I don't care how you worship, I will celebrate just you doing the good things you're doing in the community. And if doing that, we can build this army of normal folks celebrating one another despite our differences, rather than vilifying one another because of our differences, and celebrating the good that's going on in our community, that maybe we can start approaching each other from a different place.
Actually talking to each other, not at each other.
Yeah, talking with one another.
Yeah, I mean, that's really old school.
It is. Listen, nothing I'm saying is revolutionary
Right.
or new. I'm just trying to remind us of our humanity, our civility, and start to have non-threatening conversations about the stuff that matters, all against the backdrop of serving our fellow man who may not be as blessed as you are.
I'd actually found your podcast before you actually told me about it. So
Really?
It was great. Yeah, no, I'd stumbled across it and started listening to it, and I got to tell you, there's three things I get from it. Number one, it is comforting to know that there are people out there. Your guests are great. They really are. They're very real, and they're very open, and they're very
Tip
honest.
of the cap to the producers.
No, the producers. Well,
Yeah.
God bless producers.
God bless producers.
I can say
I'm the host.
They're like editors, you know.
They work hard finding.
You curse
these
them,
things.
but they're, you know, if it wasn't for them, it would
That's
be a
right.
lot rougher.
That's it.
The other thing, though, I mean, you're a good host. You do a good job, you know, getting them to move along and answer the questions, and so it's an entertaining podcast to listen to, which is important. People want to be entertained. But the thing that I love about it the most is that they're just darn good ideas that can be lifted from wherever they're at and taken to your community and used.
I have yet to find. We've been out 6 months.
Yeah.
We
And it's doing great. Yeah.
We've been as high as number 10 in the country on Apple. We've only been out 6 months.
Bill, do you understand that everybody, including my dog, has a podcast?
Yeah, well,
So,
the greatest
I mean,
thing about podcasts is there's no barrier to entry. The worst thing about podcasts is there's no barrier to entry. But what I want to play on what you said, which is so true. It's only been 6 months, and we release every Tuesday, so that's 24, 25 shows so far. I have not spoken to a single guest or heard a single idea or examined and explored and told our audience about what each of these guests are doing. I haven't seen a single one that is not scalable.
Yeah.
And that means if you listen long enough, you're going to hear an idea that somebody else that's doing somewhere, and you're going to get a blueprint of something you can do in your own community. And if you like it, all of our guests share their personal information. We share our personal information. We interact heavily on email and even phone with our listeners who are interested and want these ideas. But not only do you have a blueprint of an idea, you have the personal contact information of the architect of that blueprint. So if you listen long enough, you're going to find something that you can employ your passion, your discipline in an area of need in your society, and you're going to have a blueprint on how to do it and the phone number of the architect of that blueprint to help you start it.
You know, some of the stories and some of the people have probably got every reason in the world to be bitter about whatever the circumstances they're dealing with in their life. And like I said, I wrote down some of the ones that are Lee Robbins, who's one of your most recent ones. Lee he got thrown in jail pretty much for, he claims those false reasons, and I have no reason to doubt him on that. And he had every reason in the world to shake his fist at the sky, but instead he's like, no, people don't need a second chance, they need a better chance.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. He grew up poor, grew up in the hood in Houston, found a way out, got his degree, got a master's, started a business, moved to Atlanta, left his business in what he thought were capable hands, and those capable hands ended up committing fraud, and because he owned the company, he did time for it.
Yeah.
And instead of being bitter about pulling himself up and all he did, he found a way to give back while in prison, and is now started a re-entry program. The recidivism rate in the United States, the truth is that 70% of people in jail within 3 years will reoffend and end up back in jail. 70%.
That's incredible, yeah.
If you go through his program, it's 2%. He changes the idea of what a returning citizen can be and is by the work that he's done. And it's just phenomenal. And it is not only scalable, it is being scaled. Every city in this country that has a prison needs to know Lee Robbins' story and what Lee Robbins does, and he will share it.
He will share it, and it's paying for itself too. So it's
Self-sustaining.
It's self-sustaining.
You don't need federal money,
Yeah.
you don't need grants, you don't need anything. It all works. And that's just one in a litany of stories that's scalable.
Most of your guests are just everyday, normal, like you said, an army of normal folks. You did kind of break that, and you had Mike Rowe on your show.
We
Dirty
do.
Jobs. And I thought it was good because in a way you understand why, because of normal folks, is why he became Mike Rowe.
We do an occasional special segment inside the podcast from a normal coach called Sporting Greatness.
Yeah.
And we will veer off 3 or 4 times a year and interview somebody who we all know, like a Mike Rowe.
Yeah.
And we briefly touch on what he's done because it's entertaining and people are interested. But the vast majority of the show with Mike Rowe is not what he's done, but who supported his greatness. I want to learn about the army of normal folks that taught him lessons and helped him get where he is. And it turns out the people that supported his greatness were his grandfather, his music course teacher in high school, and his Boy Scout scoutmaster. Most normal people that you would have never heard of, and each of their stories in and of themselves are fascinating. And without those people in Mike Rowe's life, you and I would have never heard of Mike Rowe.
Yeah.
So it's supporting greatness. What normal people, what members of the army of normal folks supported you to reach your greatness. And it's an opportunity for people like Mike to celebrate those who you and I may never have heard of, but can be inspired by because we can see in Mike Rowe the value of those normal people's work.
I mean, looking back on your life, there are people that came across your path. That's why you're sitting here today talking to me, because you wouldn't be here probably.
You
had coaches, you had
Zach
mentors
Street
and
was a
teachers.
basketball coach when I was in elementary school. Del Flickinger was my math teacher and, believe it or not, chess coach, who opened my eyes to a world beyond what I saw.
Like you said, he was a gooby-looking rock star.
He was a gooby-looking rock star, and I found out he ended up winning 4 state championships in football and had a rock band and was a math teacher and, oh, by the way, was a master in chess.
Who taught you?
Yeah, he gave me a backdrop of many interstates have 5 or 6 lanes, and you can drive in all of them.
Yeah.
And Coach Spain, my football coach in high school, the son of a cotton farmer, is as old school as you get, but you knew he didn't have to tell you he loved you, so that you knew, but you still knew he loved you. And the advice that he gave me in life and how to get over difficult circumstances, all along my steps, I've been so fortunate to have had men like that people like that enter my life and teach me along the way. And given the way I came up, I don't know where I'd be without them. And all of them are just normal folks, and it just speaks more and more to this army of normal folks can change lives, and they do every day in our country. We just need to know about them and have our faith in humanity restored.
Annie Crenshaw, touch on her. She has a restaurant in Jackson, Tennessee. I've been, like I said, that one's the freshest on me because I was just listening to it in the car before we came down here to talk. But she's incredible human being, 9 kids, has suffered loss, but she does a restaurant right in the middle of Jackson, Tennessee. And if you can't pay, then you eat, but you work.
Yeah,
what a great idea.
The menu has no menu has no prices.
Yeah.
And if you can pay twice what your meal's worth so someone else can eat, you do it.
Yeah.
If you can come in and only pay a few bucks, that's what you pay. If you can't pay anything, they'll let you work for an hour in the kitchen to pay for your meal. It's called Community Cafe. And when I heard it, I was like, this sounds like a soup kitchen to me.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that doctors and attorneys and real estate developers are sitting there eating lunch with homeless people, sharing bread and a table. So I went up and checked it out. I walked in, and there was a guy in scrubs, an attorney in a tie, and a homeless dude sitting at the same, they're all family style tables, eating the same meal, and they were learning about each other. And I'm like, there's the answer, because I promise you, they don't vote the same, and they don't listen to the same news outlets. And if they only voted and listened to who they voted for, and only listened to the same news outlets, they would fall prey to the narrative that they're supposed to be enemies.
Yeah.
And they're anything but enemies. They're just people getting through life on different spectrums of life, and they're learning about each other while being served. And this 69-year-old woman named Amy Crenshaw, or 61-year, I don't know, it's an older lady named with 9 kids, starts this thing in downtown Jackson, and it's changing lives.
Isn't that so true though? And it's truly a Southern thing too, that food is always, should be the root of all a community.
Well, it is for me personally.
Hey, I've lived in that dream too.
Yeah,
I understand on that one
right.
as well. Once again, tell folks how they can find out a little bit more about
It's Army of Normal Folks. You go to normalfolks.us, and I really subscribe, join, listen.
And contribute.
And contribute. And really, contribute is not money. Contribute with your time and your effort. Tell us your stories. Reach out to us. Give us stories of people doing amazing things in your community. We will respond to emails, and if they fit, we'll interview them, and we'll bring them to Memphis. And
that's what I love. You also bring them to you.
Yeah, so, no Zooms. I either go to them or we bring them to us. We have conversations. They're entertaining. They're very well produced. But most importantly, we hope they're inspiring. So normalfolks.us. You can find us on all the social media channels. You can listen to us on iHeart, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us and give us a shot. I think you'll find it interesting.
Folks, by the way, I kind of glossed over this too. You're an Ole Miss grad as well.
I am. I'm an Ole Miss grad and hotty totty.
And you wrote for the Daily Mississippian.
I did. I wrote for the Daily Mississippian and spent 5 wonderful years in Oxford. And 2 of my kids.
Oh, you were busting my chops about Tennessee, and I spent 5 years there too. So
well, there you have it. Well, it took me 5 because it took me 3 to figure out what I wanted to be.
Well, I switched. Yeah, I switched.
And I still don't know.
I mean, neither. Yeah. That's the beauty of it, though. But before we wrap up, how did you decide on doing a podcast on this? Because I know you, like I said, you and I have talked about this issue and so forth, and you just. When did you say, you know what, a podcast is a great way to do this?
We're distributed by iHeart, and I can't let that go because iHeart's been unbelievably supportive. And there's a marketing firm in Chicago called Iron Lights that also has a philanthropy side, Iron Lights and Iron Light Labs. And those guys produce it. And Alex Cortez, who's my producer, who works for them, heard me in an interview talk about what I think would change the country, an army of normal folks. And he came to me and he said, I love the concept. What if we find this army of people and you're interviewing when we start a podcast and try to start a movement? And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I thought, we'll see. And lo and behold, within a month, we were top 10 on Apple.
That's incredible. Bill,
yeah, it is.
I'm a big fan. good.
I'm
to
a
be-
big fan of yours too.
No, it's just good to be able to sit. I mean, you and I have talked back and forth electronically, so it's just nice to be able to officially get to meet you. But thank you for coming down from Memphis to do this today. This has been incredible.
Been my honor.
And I'm glad that you're taking time away from the business. I hope everything, you can plug the business too, because
I'm in the lumber business, but
Yeah.
that's not what this is about. But I'm happy to take the morning off, come spend some time.
no,
with
that's
you.
great. I appreciate it. Thank you. So now I got to go feed you.
Yeah, which is going to cost you.
I know, a lot. So that's all right though. It's worth it.
Thanks.
All right. Hey, thank you for watching. And about to say, if you want to check out any great past episodes, you can go to MississippiToday.org. Oh yeah, and there's some fantastic journalism and a few decent cartoons as well. Of course, we'll come back next week with another edition of Mississippi Stories. Thank you so much. And until next time, I'm Marshall Ramsey. Y'all have a great